Hello. Hello, 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 hello. Bonjour. Hola. Guten Tag, everybody. Hajime. Wait, that's not how you say it in Japanese. Anyways, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the Differently Wired Show, episode 65, Respecting Our Differences. While you should respect our differences, you should also respect our authority, as Cartman would say from the South Park. Especially mine, because, you know, I'm literally glowing like a god, and you know what you do to gods, you obey them. Don't know where that tangent came from. Anyways, probably just a Freudian slip. Ladies and gentlemen, it's good to be with you all again. The breathing problems have come back, so bear with me if I kind of stumble over myself a little bit. We're going to get into all the good stuff momentarily, but before we do, I just want to introduce my co-host as per usual. He is PhD. He is, I don't know. I got to think of new intros for you aside from the man that...
Yeah, you really do.
Because he is a jack of all trades. He's more than the man who has the skills to pay them bills. He risks it to get that biscuit, as Vash12349 would say. He is John Tucker. John, how should I introduce you? Do you have any ideas from now on?
None at all.
Well, you criticize me, yet you have nothing to offer.
Well, that's par for the course.
Yeah, I know, right? It's like I'm on YouTube. What should I expect? People criticize me all the time. It's like, well, what would you do?
Of course.
I don't know. You're the person that should have that idea. It's like, most people that vote. Let's get to the house cleaning stuff. First of all, I just want to remind you guys, I should probably bring this stuff up. We do have a podcast. Well, I mean, this is the podcast, but rather we have an audio version of the podcast. If you'd like to listen to us on the go, I don't know if you're driving around, if you're on the treadmill, that seems kind of weird, but hey, we dig it nonetheless. That's what we do here at the Differently Wired Show. You can download us on all the different places that you get your podcasts. You know, we have Apple Podcasts up here. We have Spotify. Get it on iHeartRadio. You can get it on Stitcher, I believe. I say that every week. I need to check. Do we actually have it on Stitcher or not? Somebody please check that for me and, assuage my fears? Assuage my fears. Thank you. Yes, because we are Canadian. Doesn't make any sense.
You go. That's how you can introduce me.
Yes, he is Canadian.
As a Canadian, there you go.
Yes, he's the Canadian who's always correcting your grammar, and you can't get mad at him because Canadians are freakishly polite. I'm Canadian too.
Yep.
Even though I am Simpsons canon, and I should be living in Springfield, USA. Facebook page, we have one. Go like it. Just do it. I know you have a Facebook profile. I don't care if you don't use Facebook often. Just do it. Don't even think it. Just go. Just get like Nike or Shia LaBeouf, whoever you prefer, and just do it. Discord server. We're almost at 1,400 members. It's pretty good. Got a lot of people coming in over the past week. Met a couple of new people that I've been messaging back and forth with. One of them I've been talking to frequently. Hopefully she's listening. Her name's Jenny. She's a big fan of Tool. Good to see you here, Jenny, if you are here. If you guys want to discuss my newest videos, or if you're looking for a place to meet up with other differently wired people, share experiences, share advice, help one another out, the Discord server is a great place to be. There's a link to it in the description box below in case you want to join. And also, I gotta get the graphic for my Subscribestar back. One of the perks of supporting me on Subscribestar, which in case you guys don't know, it's like Patreon, just without the unethical business practices. If you support me on Subscribestar at $2 a month, you get access to the after show. There is an after show for the show. It starts at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so roughly an hour from now. And we just hang out. You know, we do whatever. Sometimes we play video games. You know, if any of the people that join me for the after show afterwards have downloaded Halo 2 for the PC, which came out today, and want me to kick your ass, let's boot up some Halo after we're done. And we can just hang out.
Halo 2 for the PC. It sounds like some angelic infestation or something.
It's very much the opposite, John. It's where you go and kill them alien bastards as
oh, good heavens.
As Sergeant Johnson says from that game series. Yes, Halo is about killing aliens. It has nothing angelic about it. unless yes, exactly. It caters to our six sensibilities. And also, before we move on to the main topic, John, forgot to do this last week. Let's plug your thing again. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. You want me to talk about that a little bit?
Yes, please.
On my website, johntuckerphd.com, there's the graphic. You can chat with me for free. There's lots of room next Monday. I have 20-minute slots on Monday, and several people have used them. And we have quite lovely chats, and we can actually do a lot of stuff, because when you click on that, you can say, I want to talk about this particular issue. So we start with that issue. We don't go through the history, the background, none of that. Just, you want to talk about this thing. It's very much like what Max and I do when we open the mailbag and we deal directly with an issue. Only thing is, on this spot here, you and I can chat for 20 minutes. Nobody's interfering.
Mm-hmm.
And it's private.
And of course, and just as a suggestion, in case you guys actually do want to talk to John, make sure you ask him about that one time he poured water during a conference call.
That's cute. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Just
Let me pour more water.
No, please don't. Now that I have that image in my head. Anyways, so with that out of the way, let's jump into the main topic of the day. Okay, calm down, Max. Calm down. Today's topic, we've for the past couple of weeks, we've been going off of topics that you guys actually suggested, some of the people in the Discord. And just to switch things up a little bit, I just figured I'd ask John, do you have any particular topics that you'd like to bring up that have nothing to do with the list? So I asked John about this morning, and when I asked him, hey, do you want to have an idea in mind for a topic today? He said deep respect. And then I think I said in response to him, deep respect for what? And I think I said that because I started texting him like roughly 2 minutes after I got up. So I was like, wait, what? What's going on? I shouldn't do that either right after I get up or right before I go to bed. It's just not a good idea. So I said, deep respect for what? And he said, people and ideas in a meeting. And it's like, what? Deep respect for people and ideas in a meeting? What are you talking about? And then he called me later and he said, I'm in a meeting. Don't text me. So then I feel like an idiot. But anyways, what he meant was deep respect for people and ideas. And I was like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. So John, why don't you sort of start us off and tell us why you chose this topic, why you think it's relevant to the differently wired subject overall?
Well, to me, it's really important at a number of levels. When you're differently wired, chances are you've had problems in relationships, in jobs, in schools, and so on. As a group, we could develop a cult-like sense of, well, I need my differences accommodated. But you neurotypical people, well, you should just accommodate my differences. I think it's really important to realize that we're all in this together. And that when people don't understand us and we don't understand them, there's a responsibility we both have. So even if you've had slings and arrows of outrageous fortune all your life and you've been hard done by and you got stuff to moan and groan about till the cows come home, you still have a responsibility for dealing with that in such a way that you don't use it as an excuse to not be empathetic to others, to not listen to others, to not talk with others with respect. So even if people sort of are disrespectful to you, it's not a great model to say, oh, let me see if I can disrespect you back, because that tends to just deteriorate. It's now, really and truly, you do have to stand up for yourself, but it's necessary, I believe, to stand up for yourself with grace and dignity rather than with snappishness as best you can. Now, okay, let's say you have a meltdown and you do stuff, after you're sad that you did that stuff. Okay, well, people may accept that. You explain, look, I'm sorry this happened. My senses overwhelmed me, or something happened and I had to leave the room, or whatever the case may be. If you're with decent, polite people, they say, look, I understand. Stuff happens. Sometimes we are overwhelmed. But what I am saying, the big point I'm making here, is that we have to show it and provide leadership and demonstrate empathy, demonstrate respect of other cultures. We're seeing right now all kinds of weird stuff geopolitically where culture. Well, yesterday, Brian Adams, this Canadian singer, said some stuff that was wildly trashed on the web and smashed over everything. He wasn't thinking, or maybe he was, but what it was, it did not show respect for cultures. It didn't show respect for language. I don't know, a lot of stuff. But we're seeing like this kind of thing all the time. And each of us has a responsibility to do our part, our own individual part, to demonstrate that we are willing to be empathetic and help people with differences, not just diversity, not just diversities. Diversities are usually a list of things you see in charters of rights and things like that. That's good. Yeah, we have to accept and be willing to do that. But differences are even more. Differences are, people who are slightly different height or slightly less rich than you or slightly more rich than you or whatever the case might be. So anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to rant about that,
Oh,
but it seems to me it's been a problem for a lot of my people. And some of my clients, they get this feeling of, oh, I dislike you and you don't understand me, so you're bad. It's crazy, right?
hmm.
They're just perpetuating a spiral of problems, taking that distant to the other point of view.
Well, speaking of Twitter, that's literally what happens between everybody that ever uses Twitter. It's like, oh, this person disagrees with me. Well, you're a Nazi, because
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
appropriate.
yeah.
Just
Yeah.
reducing everybody to that extreme horror. But yeah, generally, John, what you're saying, even though it's important for everybody to do it, regardless if you're neurotypical or neuroatypical, it is something that differently wired people need to keep in mind at all times. Because just because you have these inherent differences, that doesn't mean you can go around just beating people over the back of the head with them. Because then
Mm,
what happens with
mm,
that is the people that really most need to become more welcoming to different identities and people with different predispositions or immutable characteristics, they'll just say, oh, well, when I met somebody who was autistic, that person was a jerk. And I'm just
mm,
going to assume that anybody's autistic is just somebody that has problems with their parents or never really grew up. And then they'll use that. And, if
yeah.
enough people do that enough, then that will be, unfortunately, the way that uh, a larger number of people tend to view people like us.
There's
Um,
another. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
yeah. So, what I just sort of recommend to people who are differently wired and are having to sort of convince people that differently wired issues are real and we're not just using them as excuses to be lazy or excuses for bad behavior. Try to be as patient as possible, and if necessary, use minimal necessary force, because when you do that, you are being assertive, but you're also maintaining a sort of air of moral superiority. And that's,
Ah, yes.
yeah. So go ahead, John, with what you were about to say.
Well, that's an important segue. The air of moral superiority also comes out in another way, and that is when you find somebody who's in your tribe, whatever that happens to be. If it's differently wired this type or differently wired that type or this culture or this singing group or whatever it happens to be, you tend to want to not stand apart from your group. So if somebody starts trashing or showing moral superiority to a other person over there, you sort of go along with the crowd. That's a problem. That becomes cult-like behavior. And so then you feel bad. Oh, they're bullying this guy. Uh, I should maybe kick him too. And you lose sight of your own humanity because you want to stay with the group. But that's really tricky
Mhm.
because in some cases it's dangerous and you're in the wrong group if it's really bad. But you need to get out of that group or stand apart, or if you can, speak up for the person who's being trashed. Now, we see this with young kids in junior high school, intermediate school, where everybody says, "Oh, she's like, did you hear what she did? Oh my God, she's so bad. Nobody's going to talk to her. Let's not talk to her. Let's turn our back on her." And you'll see this kind of shunning behavior with young kids who need really desperately to be part of the group. So that behavior is interim, it's transitional, and we need to get rid of it as soon as we possibly can. 11 and 12 and 13-year-olds, yeah, they'll rush around and band together and trash one another, but it can turn really sour. It can go really badly, especially in the web, especially if you're going to trash somebody who gets caught. And we've seen really, really, really terrible tragedies where the whole community on the web will gang up on this one person who, they decide they all don't like, and they bully her to tears. So uh, that kind of groupthink is a real problem for recognizing and respecting differences.
Yeah.
That's why it's important.
And it's really like people say, oh, I would never get into that type of mentality or I just become part of the mob. I'm too much of an individual. Well, when it comes to actually being in situations like that, where everybody's affected by a particular negative emotion, a particularly negative emotion, it's quite amazing how quickly we'll devolve into unconscious negative behavior. Like, for example, I was talking. Well, maybe should I even bring this example up? Yeah,
Which one is
sure.
that?
When we were talking about a game called The Last of Us last week. Remember us talking about that?
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Um,
Fill your boots.
you know what? Screw it, because I already brought it up. People are going to want me to talk about it anyways. So, there were some leaks in regards to a game that's coming out next month called The Last of Us Part 2. And unfortunately, what happens whenever a particular fandom is offended by something that is released, people will tend to gang up and harass the creators of that material. Now, look, when I say harass, people tend to think, well, shouldn't people be able to express their dislike of something? And it's like, yeah, of course. Like if people don't like what direction The Last of Us Part 2 is going in, more power to you. Express that dislike and express your passion for the franchise overall. That's fine. But don't be a dirtbag. Because when you do that, then, if you really, really don't like something, then what the creators are going to say is, oh, well, all the people that are hating on our game are just a bunch of trolls that don't like LGBT characters, because there are LGBT characters in the new Last of Us game, and they won't listen to any of the valid criticism of the game, right? So basically, the whole point that we're trying to bring up here is that you always have to be mindful of the way that you're representing yourself, and moreover, how you're representing certain communities that you're belonging to, whether it's, like I said, communities of immutable characteristics or communities of passions like games and movies and stuff like that. Otherwise, everything just devolves. It's like once you throw S into the fan, then everybody gets covered in S. Yeah. Yeah. Notional 2006 says The Last of Us 2 and everything surrounding it is a cluster F. Yeah. It's. I'm not looking forward to covering it in June, because no matter what I say, and no matter how you know logical and rational and civil I am about the subject, people are just going to invade my comment sections and say, oh, you're just a shill for the gamers, and you are just a woke social justice. God. Now, you know what? Now I'm going to start getting toxic. I should probably stop, but anyways.
I think you are.
Yeah. Because sometimes fandoms, they can really frustrate me.
That's an interesting thing you're demonstrating now, Max, and that is what happens when you have ADHD or when you have differently wired. It tends to be a blurry line between the cognitive function and the emotional.
Yeah,
So
tell me
when
about it.
things come up, it hits you in the gut or the heart or some part of your body. It shows up somatically. It's not just thoughtful. Oh, I think this is a good thing and this is a bad thing because of these reasons. It's
Yeah.
strikes you. It is so that's a real elegant trick to demonstrate how you can step back from the emotional uh, in involvement and say, "Oh, what am I doing here? Wait now, I'm about to slap my child in the face, or I'm about to scream at my spouse, or I'm about wait now, can I stop myself?" Hard to stop yourself because your brain's kind of sabotaging you all the time. So it's really good to develop little strategies to step back from the precipice of wildly acting out on some of these emotional things. But even when the emotions grip that's going to interfere with the thoughtful, reasonable way you can work through an idea.
Mhm. So let's do a case study. So, John, I tend to think that Leonard Cohen sucks.
Okay.
Oh, I was expecting you to react. Damn it.
No, I love Leonard Cohen, but I respect our difference of opinion.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
my wife detests Leonard Cohen. She finds him drony and um, depressing. And he's been famous all his life for, bringing on a wall and a veil of tears. I understand that. And at times his voice is like that.
Mm.
And at other times he sings songs about being born with the man with the golden voice. What I love about him is his poetry and the age I was when I first heard his music, which was in the 60s
Mm.
and 70s. And the fact that this guy, until he was like 82, kept his um, remarkable spirit, poetic spirit going. So, I mean, you can hate him all you like. That's fine.
No, I don't. I don't actually hate Leonard Cohen. I just wanted to see how you would react when I said that, because when it comes to, like I said, with certain fandoms, people tend to get quite passionate. If somebody wants to get me to fight them, all you have to say is that Metal Gear Solid sucks, and I'm like, do you want to fight me on the street? I'm serious. That honestly, if you want to offend me, but yeah, Leonard Cohen's fine. So, in regards to particular strategies that you should take on, especially if you're differently wired, but this goes for everybody, just try to think about the scenarios where you tend to get the most angry, or where anybody tends to get the most angry. So I think Twitter is a decent place to start. John, you and I were talking before we did the show. Like, you have a Twitter. Follow him on Twitter if you guys want. What is it? At John Tucker PhD? What is it?
I forget. I think it might be ADHD Journey. I can't remember what it is now.
Oh, okay.
I use it once a month.
Yeah.
I'm not a Twitter fooler.
Yeah.
Whatever that is.
And good, because that way you can save yourself the agony of being on Twitter. But when you do use Twitter, like you said, you post something inspirational, or you post something that is of relevance to the differently wired community.
Yeah, well, I would post something like an interesting new article about ADHD findings, particularly something like the influence of your diet on your brain. I'm particularly interested in that these days, and I'm following closely people who are looking at, like, for instance, carbohydrate. It's devilish on your brain. So I'm very interested in new research that's coming out daily on that kind of thing, or some new thing about the impact of omega-3 fatty acids, or magnesium on sleep, or something like this. If I see something like that that looks like it's rooted in good science, I'll probably, just retweet it. If there's some beautiful music or something, I'll retweet that. What I will not retweet is something that says, "Oh, look how bad he is. I'm good. He's so bad and stupid and la 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 la." It's not hard. There are certain world leaders now. It is not hard to make fun of, but I won't do it because it's done enough.
I'm just scrolling through your Twitter right now. Why do I just see a whole bunch of Euro trash techno music?
I don't know.
You don't know. It's your Twitter feed. Anyways, I'm actually just looking it up so that way I can share it with you guys once I post it. Hopefully I can post it in the chat. I can't find it. You said ADHD Journey?
Yeah, I can't even remember what it is. When I turn it on, it's on my homepage. So just, I don't know. See if I can find it.
Yeah, but all right. Well, while you're looking for it, I'll just discuss my particular strategies when it comes to making sure that our differences don't get exacerbated and then we get into a fight. So when I'm on Twitter, I mean, every once in and then I'll post something that I believe in politically, but it's only if I truly believe in that particular thing, and I believe. What is it? Oftentimes, the only time I will actually ever tweet about something political is if it has something to do with free speech, because I believe that the fundamental right of free speech is something that all Western, and well, not just Western, but any society should have. And I'll tweet about that. But aside from that, I'll mostly just post about my videos or post about something that I think people will enjoy. So what I recommend to people that might be more politically minded or, talk about contentious issues online, I recommend that if you are differently wired and you find yourself feeling particularly stressed out on social media, or if you talk about politics a lot, maybe just try unfollowing a whole bunch of political news outlets or anywhere you get political news for a week on Twitter and see how things go. Because I did that roughly a year ago, and trust me, my life is a whole lot better for it. And one other thing, like when it comes to just talking about anything political, just as a general rule of thumb, don't even bother on Twitter, because it's like staring into the heart of darkness on a daily basis on Twitter. It's much worse than it is on YouTube. But anyways, if you're going to do that on Twitter or anywhere on social media, just try to make it an instinct for yourself. Like right before you hit post, think to yourself, do I really want to post this? Is it really worth it putting out my opinion right now? And I say this to a lot of the differently wired people that are listening right now, because it's like I've found myself triggering so many meltdowns for myself in the past, just over people saying really, really stupid stuff, and me getting into arguments with people that are saying stupid stuff, that I just tell myself afterwards, gosh, was that really worth it? Was it really worth expressing my opinion on that subject just so I can feel right, or contradicting somebody who's stupid only for, like I said, the S to hit the fan? And I've certainly developed that particular rule for myself a lot more now that my YouTube channel is growing. I've taken it upon myself to, when people express criticism, I only address people that express valid criticism. Valid criticism. I express criticism that is put in a civil way and done in a logical, rational manner. Because then it's like, okay, that's criticism that maybe I can learn from. Maybe that person's right about something that I'm saying. Or if he's wrong, I'll at least address him because, he took the time to write and he did so in a really polite way. And that's just a little bit of advice to the people that are watching my videos right now. Anybody that's listening to this particular podcast episode, if you want me to respond to you and you have a particular why do I keep saying particular criticism? Just do it like that. Do it in a civil way based on evidence, and I will almost always respond to you because I love the conversation. There was one other thing I wanted to say, but I need to catch my breath. Like my breathing problems have started to come back for some reason. Some of you are already aware of this. It tends to come and go. I'm not sure why that is. I'm going to go to the doctor's tomorrow and get it figured out. Before we go into the mailbag, though, I just wanted to ask, John, was there anything else you wanted to bring up?
Yeah, I almost was going to jump into that, but the idea eluded me. About criticism, I think that point is well taken. And I'll leave that for now. Maybe that thought will come back into my little brain later as we're doing the mailbag. We don't want to miss an opportunity to talk to those folks.
Absolutely. So, guys, if you have anything that you'd like to say on the subject of respecting people's differences, or how to engage with people in a less explosive, combative way, make sure you leave your thoughts in the live chat, or if you're watching this afterwards when the live broadcast is done, make sure you leave it in the comment section below. We'd love to hear from you. Okay, so moving on to the mailbag. Every week that we do this show, John and I usually like to save some time towards the end of the show where we can dive into our email inbox. And we like to hear from you guys on anything in regards to being differently wired or knowing somebody that's differently wired, whether you're looking for advice or you're looking for more information, anything that has to do with that main subject. We'd love to hear from you. And you can send in your comments at any time to this email address that you see on screen now, which is maxsterrett@yahoo.ca. As I take a deep breath, exhale. Okay. First email comes to us from Pedro. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get to Pedro's email last week, but we are this week. Thanks for being patient, Pedro. And he writes, for as long as I've known, dealing with romance has been quite tricky for me. First, it took me quite a while to feel attracted to anyone. Probably it first happened just before high school began. Yep, that's me too. I'm right there with you, Pedro. Then I was pretty bad at expressing that attraction or understanding how flirting works. I was pretty direct and went like, "Oh, I like you. Let's date." Sorry. But in a way, I was admittedly quite a bit uncomprehensive and a jerk. Finally, at around my second year of high school, I made a friend to whom I became attracted, or rather, I felt attracted to someone who soon became my friend. Even then, however, I still had no idea how to express those feelings properly. It felt unnatural and cheesy to act flirtatious. Thank you! Thank you, Adro. Sorry. It felt unnatural and cheesy to act flirtatiously, and I didn't want to ruin our friendship by doing that wrongly. It took me about 6 months with the help of a friend who, although coincidentally autistic, is miles better than me in regards to socialization to tell her. And even then, while I was planning on telling her, I didn't even do it as planned. She just one day asked me if I was interested over a text message. Curiously, that made things easier to say, and while she wasn't interested in me romantically, we were able to remain friends. That's good. Even though I was consciously happy I was friends with her and was okay with not dating, I still had many struggles to manage the attraction I still felt. I honestly find her quite charming and beautiful, and throughout the following year I suffered quite a bit because I couldn't contain those feelings, even already known her lack of interest. Moving on from that took quite a lot of effort, even if I can't describe them very well. So, sorry for the trouble filtering this out. We'll take you, Max. Oh, well, I edited his email just a little bit before the show. He said it's okay. Finally, here I am at the age of 19. Haven't dated anyone yet, and the whole process is still quite confusing to me. Seeing other people do it so apparently effortlessly hurts me a bit. But I think I'm gradually getting better and better, and I'm trying more not to take 6 months to even declare my interest in someone, although I can't really say I've done so since. As a last note, there was a colleague I was intending to flirt with and even scheduled doing some stuff with just the week before this pandemic resulted in a lockdown. And as the closing message, I tell everyone that yes, things can be frustratingly tough, especially if they seem as otherworldly as they may. But if you genuinely try, I believe it is possible to improve your skills and eventually get there. And be careful not to fall into the admittedly tempting path of all, quote unquote, insert gender here, end quote, are jerks that can't see the good in me. Doing that is the path to isolation and further reinforcing that feeling, and good luck to all others that struggle with that. Wasn't there somebody else? Well, first of all, thank you for sending that in, Pedro. But wasn't there somebody else that sent in an email before saying, "Don't go down that path"? Because
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
hope we didn't read the same email because I'm pretty sure we didn't get to Pedro last
I
week.
don't think we got to Pedro last time, but it's okay
Yeah,
because if we did, we can do it again. Um,
it's always relevant.
yeah.
John,
I
what
like.
is it about women not? Yeah, no, I was just about to say. Keep in mind, I'm just about to make a joke, guys. I'm not actually about to follow the path that Pedro says. I was just about to say, John, why is it that men have to do the like to make the first move instead of women most of the time? But anyways,
Actually, I had a client tell me yesterday about a woman making the first move.
oh damn, good job.
Yeah, yeah. This is changing. In different cultures, there's different mores and patterns. But in the North American style, in the Western cultures, typically has been the men who did all the pursuing and so on. But that seems to be changing as people are people and they realize, well, you know what, we don't have to follow stuff because other people did it that way.
Hmm.
So as women are, realizing if they want to say something, they can say something. But it's kind of tricky for everybody. Pedro it demonstrates that perfectly. He's not sure how to do it. He's how he watches people who seem to just naturally behave in such a way that they seem to have no trouble with socialization. But it's a particular problem. It can be a particular problem if you're differently wired because you're not sure of the effect of what this is. Because the last time you did that, that blew up in your face, so you can't do that again. Now you get like tentative and kind of concerned. I am concerned about the idea of a skill set for flirting. I don't have the answer for this, but it doesn't feel right to me that you would develop a particular set of, patterned behavior that you copied off movie stars or the, the fellow down the street.
Hmm.
Because it seems to me that the closer you can be yourself uh, the more likely it is that that self will translate well. Because if you go and say, "Oh, I'll behave this way," and that person will be really impressed with me behaving that way, but it's not you.
Hmm.
You're copying some other person's behavior. That would make a problem because now you've built a mask, and you have to keep wearing that mask. The mask is I don't care, or the mask is I care a lot, or the mask is this or that. You you're kind of having to live two worlds. Okay, what did I say that I was like when I was last talking to this person? Oh, I was like this. Now you got to kind of consciously develop a set of pattern speeches, flirting things.
Hmm.
If it is possible, it's nice to be as authentic as you can be. So, what we've often talked about on this show before is if you have a problem with a particular, socialization issue, I think it's a good thing to be upfront about this thing. If you have a problem, for example, looking at people, looking up with eye contact, you instead of looking down all the time and saying, "Oh, I'm so cool, I'm looking down," it's better to say, "You know what? This is a problem for me. This is why."
Yeah.
And that way you kind of disarm the concern and worry that the other person has.
Yeah. Unless, you're like a shoegaze rock star and you're really handsome. Probably not. Yeah. Which has always been my dream, but yeah, just what John says though is really important. Being yourself is to dating as gold is to the stock market. It's a good safe haven to hedge your bets in. I found that that works out best for me. And let's be honest, when it comes to any relationship, honesty is the number one principle, at least in my opinion. It's definitely one of the most important things. And if you can be true to yourself and be honest, that's something that anybody, with a brain can find valuable. And I found that when it comes to my relationships, I found that being closer to myself and finding my own way, being true to myself, engaging with my own interests, and building up character and all that. Instead of, as John said, trying to put on a mask just to try and get people to like me, that's worked out best for me in the past. And I definitely encourage people that are differently wired to do that as well. And also, just as this is a piece of advice that we've given to other differently wired people, I think, especially in the past couple episodes, it's always differently wired people are really good listeners. If you're really bad at, instigating conversations, or if you a dread conversation, it's always easier to just sit there and listen and respond to what other people are saying, because they're the ones that are leading the conversation, and you're sort of approaching what they're saying more so as a mathematical problem, which is what differently wired people tend to be better at. Okay, so that out of the way, let's move on to the next email. And I wanted to include this email because it definitely dovetails in with the main topic today. And this one comes to us from Briggy T. Briggy T writes, so April 22nd, I had a mental breakdown. Sorry to hear that. About riding a bike. I was trying most of the day so my mother wouldn't get upset. Then I slowly got tired and bruised. I said I want a break. Then they said no, not until you ride the bike. Oh, really? I slowly had a mental breakdown most of the time. I'm in that state. I rubbed my head to calm it, but because the helmet was on, I accidentally broke off part of the helmet. Geez, how hard were you rubbing your helmet? Anyways, I decided on going inside for a bit. Then my dad threw on my helmet hard, which hurt my head, making me dizzy. And then I tried and tried again, but couldn't even stand up straight. We went inside and Dad talked to Mom, and then hell broke loose. I tried and tried again, but with Mom threatening my dog. It scared me so much after a while, I just laid on the grass curled up in the ball, and I remember nothing after that. I woke up on April 23rd. Apparently, we came back inside and to let my dog come inside. I needed to do it, and so I went outside and did it. The worst part is they wouldn't let me have time to calm down while people walk by. I haven't had a breakdown in so long. I asked them to watch your videos in the past, but they think it will excuse my behavior. I'm now very scared of bikes because of their torture a helping hand. I asked for some kind of coach. My dad said, I'm coaching you. Not sure how you can help, but have you ever had an experience like this? I probably had, but I feel like I've repressed something like that. Like, if you give me like a couple minutes to think about it, maybe I can come up with something like that where I felt especially embarrassed But God, Briggy, I'm so sorry about what you had to go through. Like, it doesn't. That's not a way to approach learning anything, regardless if you're neuroatypical or neurotypical. What people should do in those situations, especially your parents, is encourage you to get on the bike. You know, if they're like, "Oh, I can't do this," like if you're the one saying to your parents, "Oh, I can't do this. I'll never be able to do this. I should just give up." No, you should continuously try to do that because learning a bike is an important thing. It's something like if you ever need to get around and you don't have a car, uh, bike is a good way of going about it, especially when you're a teenager and you want to start going more places. But the way they went about it, it just seems needlessly torturous. They should have just been like, okay, when they saw you getting to that point where you're in a very heightened emotional state, they should say, okay, just calm down. We're going to come back to this. See if you calm down in an hour. And if you have, we're going to bring you out and we're going to try this again, unless you have something else you got to do. And if you can't do it that day, then you'll try again another day. But yeah, the way they went about this is just horrible. God, in regards to
Max, I have a thought that
yeah,
just occurred to me.
please.
There's a really great psychologist called Ross Greene who wrote a book called The Explosive Child. And he talks very much in line with what we're talking about tonight with regard to respecting differences. And his way of raising kids is not by authoritarian means, but rather collaboration. So instead of, now Briggy says he wants to get a coach, but this guy, Ross Greene, has a bunch of videos. His web page, Ross Greene, I think The Explosive Child is part of the video title or not. But anyway, his main thing is you can do this with grace and dignity and actually what we're talking about, and that is respect. So even your child is young, show respect, collaboration, and you kind of work together on this. So that might be a good way to do it because, you know, they don't have to spend any money. They can just look at that.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe dad could look at that.
Yeah, and one other thing. Sorry if I'm just speeding along a little bit, but we're almost near the end of the episode. And I want to try and get to the last
Sure.
email. In regards to getting them to watch my videos, here's what I recommend, Briggy. Try to show them episode 2 in my Truth About Asperger's Syndrome series. That's the one on meltdowns. Tell them, like, I want you to watch this video. And I know you're going to think that I'm using it as an excuse, to excuse my behavior. I'm going to challenge you to watch this video, look at some of the comments, and then look me in the eye and say that I'm lying to you. Because what I have found when other people have watched those videos and shown it to their friends and family, that once they did, it was a transformative experience for their relationships. They said, oh, they finally understand everything that's going on more. They're a lot more sensitive and accepting and accommodating. And it's all been for the best. So, and also, if it will help, try and encourage them to watch this particular segment of the show, saying, hey, I sent in this email to the show that I really like, and I really appreciate it if you watch it. See if they will do that. Okay. God, my breathing, man. Okay, final email of the day comes to us from Lamia, and I apologize in advance if I'm pronouncing your name wrong, Lamia. And they write, I happened upon your YouTube channel years ago, but only got the chance to delve into it yesterday. I love your content. Well, I love you. It's tremendously helpful in helping me understand myself, but also where I stand in comparison to others. I honestly don't know if I'm mentally ill. I don't think I am. I only have touch deprivation and alexithymia. Do you know what that is, John? I don't know what that is.
Nope.
Oh, okay. I apologize, Lemia. I've wrestled with that for years, but my lack of understanding and overabundance of misinformation has made that an odd journey. I'm only really on the fence because I was actually informed I had high levels of anxiety and depression years ago, which I thought was impossible because I didn't feel hopeless or it didn't seem obvious. So, I've really been queuing up a lot of your videos for viewing. I really just had one question. In A Mentally Ill Person Analyzes Joker, I wasn't sure why you said the mother was ignorant for not wanting Arthur Fleck to make faces at her son. I haven't seen the movie yet and plan to very soon, but I was very conflicted. I don't think all strangers are bad or have ulterior motives, but I don't know if ignorant was the right word. In her perspective, it could have been another day of keeping her son safe. It didn't have to be anything personal towards Arthur, even if it may have come off that way to him. Parents with children face a lot of judgment, especially with young children. In my own personal experience, I've been pushed aside for my young son to be grabbed and held up by an old woman, and I didn't like that one bit. But because we were at a hospital and she was an old woman, I would have been seen as in the wrong by others if I said or did something about it. And in other situations, when I block these actions, whether they get closer or do step over the boundaries, I'm chastised or looked down upon. But I don't claim to know everything or fully understand, hence the reason I wanted to ask, so I could understand. I apologize if I come off as not well-meaning, if that makes sense. No, it's fine, Lamia. I totally understand, and everything was perfectly understandable in terms of the way that you wrote it and what you wanted to get across. When I used the word ignorant to the woman in that part of the movie, and people who've seen the Joker will only get this. I say the word ignorant because she didn't know what was going on. Ignorant means to be lacking in information and to act in a way based off of that lack of information, and that's what that woman was doing. If she realized that all that Arthur was doing was just trying to entertain her child, she probably wouldn't have minded it. Because the fact of the matter is, children, when it comes to parents, they tend to be like social devices. They bring them around so that they can encourage the best in people to come out. Whenever somebody sees a child, they're inclined to make funny faces at them or talk in a really cutesy way. That's just what kids are there for. And, that's sort of what Arthur was doing in that moment. And also, another reason why I thought that the mom was acting in the wrong was because the kid was laughing. He seemed to be entertained by what Arthur was doing, making faces at him. But for whatever reason, she just thought that, him being happy and laughing was a problem. And I interpreted that as, him or her looking at him and assuming, I guess, I don't know, by the way that he looked, him making the faces, and especially with the way that he reacted after she chastised him, she thought that, I don't know, maybe something about him was off-putting. Maybe there was, because, he did eventually become the Joker. But yeah, that's just the way that I saw it. But what I will say, Lami, is that you're right. There are some circumstances where nobody is wrong, and parents want to act overprotectively of their kids, and sometimes they do it overzealously, and that can lead to problems and misunderstandings. So, but it depends on the situation, and in my opinion, that's just the way that I viewed it. John, I know you told me you watched Joker recently. Do you remember that scene?
I do remember that scene, and he seemed to be motivated just by wanting to entertain the kid. But moms do look and they say, "Oh, this guy looks kind of strange or different, or I'm not sure," and they're kind of frightened.
Mm-hmm.
They don't respect that difference because it makes them think of this could go wrong. Maybe she was prescient. I don't know, but it's a very nice note from Lamia.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, and we managed to get through the mailbag tonight. Isn't that great?
Yeah, I feel completely winded. I had to do a bit of cleaning today, and I think that's sort of what's exacerbating my breathing problems a little bit. Doesn't matter though. I will still do the after show. I just might not be as, I might not make as active in an attempt to be on my game and coherent with my words. I might just try to relax just a little bit, but I will talk with you guys. Before we tune out for the night, the 44 likes and 59 people watching right now. Let me turn that ratio around, because when you do hit the like button on either this video or any other video on my channel, it tells the YouTube algorithm that this content is worth watching. It can put it in the recommended feeds of people that might really need to see content like this. Maybe they need some help with their differently wired issues, and come across this show, get the advice that they need, and hey, maybe they can be a part of this growing community. What's interesting is that that actually has been working. I've had people message me a lot in the last month or so saying, "Hey, I actually came across your channel by the Differently Wired show," which was really surprising because compared to most people who say they either come across my content thanks to the Metal Gear stuff or the Silent Hill stuff, but a lot of people have been seeing the Differently Wired show, which is fantastic. That means that the show is growing. More people are becoming a part of this community. People are seeing the health and well-being that this community promotes, and the kindness that's inherent to the people that watch this show, and they want to be a part of it. So if that's not
That's good. That's good stuff, Max.
mhm.
Very good stuff. I have to head off now. Lovely show, and I'll see you same time, same station.
Yes, thank you as always, John. I'll talk to you next week. I think that's about
Okay.
it on my end, guys. Make sure you watch my new video, which just came out about 4 hours ago. It's on The Lighthouse. Although don't watch it yet if you haven't seen the movie, which you should see the movie because it's fantastic. But in case you see the movie and you don't know what the heck is going on, make sure you watch my video because it will explain everything as the thumbnail says. That's it for me, ladies and gentlemen. My name... Oh, hey, Nuka. Good to see you when we play in Halo 2. Oh, you know what? I just remembered. I'm going to make sure that I leave the stream going for 5 seconds after I say my final piece, so that way, I don't cut it off as I usually do. So, that's it for this episode of the Differently Wired Show. Make sure you guys join me in the after show and the Discord server if you do support me on Subscribestar. And until we do this again next Wednesday, I just want to remind you guys, as always, stay yellow.